Support WrestleTalk!
Give us a subscribe.
Hi, I'm Luke Owen, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce my guest at this time, the King of the Mountain, possibly the greatest wrestler of his generation, Mr. Jeff Jarrett. Jeff, how are you today?
Luke, you still lie. You're continuing to lie. No. How you doing? It's been a while.
It has been a while. I was saying earlier, it's about 2018 since the last time we saw each other in person.
In the heat wave of that summer, we were just chatting about that.
Right, yeah,
no, good to see you again.
Very nice to see you as well.
Manchester, we were, yeah, but a little bit different circumstances.
Yes.
Did you think that we would be talking about
Wembley Stadium?
Not arena, Wembley Stadium.
Do you know what I keep saying? When they made the announcement, I kept reading it as arena. Being like, oh, Wembley Arena. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, they're booking Wembley Arena. And then they say, it can't be, surely not Wembley Stadium. But for you it's a no-brainer, right?
How about that? It's amazing, though, when you really think about, well, I'll say our history, but my history in the UK market goes back to 93 is the first time I wrestled here. So 1 year after the prior Wembley Stadium show. So you kind of put it into context, and AEW, the ITV relationship, I'll just kind of say where wrestling's at, where WrestleTalk's at, just the growth. We've obviously moved into the digital age, but it is in so many ways for me surreal that history's going to be made. Wembley 100, but with me and you could probably talk the entire interview about Wembley Stadium and how the stars have aligned. But it will be a truly historic night, not just for London or the United Kingdom, but really from a global perspective. People from all over the world are coming in, stars from all over the world, VIPs, a who's who list who wants to come. On that prior interview I did, they were like, who do you think's going to come? And I said, Mr. Tumble's right at the top of the list. I got a chuckle out of that, but no, it is. Look, it's amazing. It truly is.
I mean, as a former promoter yourself, like when Tony Khan said, "Oh, we're going to book Wembley Stadium," did you think that's an insane idea because it's so big, or did you think, hey, he's a genius, he's easily going to sell that place out?
You know, the expectations, I don't think anybody had any idea. If they say, yeah, it's, because, 40,000, 50,000, that's a massive success. Then it's 60, then 70, and now, I think when it's all said and done, you won't be able to get a ticket. I truly think as the momentum is built, but to answer your question, and I've always said this on many interviews, without risk, there is no reward. And the greater the risk, the greater reward. So with the promoter mentality, I loved it when I heard that's a big step. That's a massive step. That's going to be, in a lot of ways, a controversial step. I'm sure, as a journalist, it's y'all's job in a way to, I don't want to say poke holes, but
well, we had discussions about is it even possible to even sell out that many tickets, or what is success? What does it look like?
Right, everything's relative. But here we are, less than a month away, and on track to truly break every attendance record, and that takes in a lot of ground. It takes in a lot of ground. So I'm very grateful to be a part of it.
So, I mean, hopefully to be a part of the show itself. Do you have any matches that you would like to do, anyone you'd like to face if you were to be part of the All In card?
You just said it earlier. I'm not even a former promoter. I'm a promoter. I'm a third generation promoter. I've always got ideas. It goes without saying. But it's a spectacle. Just to be a part of it in any shape, form, or fashion is pretty unique. And I think a lot of people feel that way. So as the card rolls out, I think it's going to be very interesting on how that transpires. But, arriving here in the UK and at baggage claim, I had people come up to me and ask just that, hey, just between me and you, what's going on? I'm like, you think I'm going to tell you here at baggage claim? But no, it's amazing. Just the who's who, the VIP list that's going to be there. We were just chatting offline. I think Mr. Grealish, he needs a guitar shot. But no, I've heard folks literally from all walks of life, whether it's a wrestling fan or A-lister or an influencer. There's people flying in from all over the world to be here. So it is, and you know, when you think about Wembley, again, just kind of how the stars align, it's Wembley 100 years. So it's so special, it's hard to put into words, coming from someone that, you know, the first match I went to, my grandmother was a promoter in a small high school gym in Tennessee. So it's special.
Can I give you my pitch? What I'd like to see Jeff Jarrett.
I would love to hear it.
All In. Okay, so picture this. It's Jeff Jarrett versus Jay Lethal versus Sanjay Dutt versus Satnam Singh versus Orange Cassidy, international title, King of the Mountain match.
Oh, wow. There you have it. He's booked it. Luke has booked the match. Satnam, come on now. Satnam,
that's it. That's the great, I mean, because you've got a lot of history. If I know this correctly, you've got the most wins in the King of the Mountain match.
I'll leave that up to you for you to determine that.
Pretty sure I checked that earlier.
Okay.
That's correct. Jay Lethal's got a lot of experience in it.
Yep.
Sanjay has. Satnam Singh's the wild card in there. You can just walk up and hang that belt up.
Yep.
And you got Orange Cassidy against all four of you.
And Orange always finds a way to win, does he not? He's on a winning streak. You know, we're having tongue-in-cheek. Pretty unique group, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I was going to ask you about this group. Do you have a team name? And why isn't it Team TNA?
I think it's much bigger than that. Honestly, I do. We've kicked around a few different names. There's a few guys in the back that have tongue-in-cheek, but then not tongue-in-cheek, and say, here comes heat, there goes heat. Here comes heat, there goes heat. It's a special group. It really, our history, both professionally and privately, you know, me and Sanjay have worked together for years. Me and Jay go back to, you know, you can call it scouting, but I worked with him up in Wayne, New Jersey. You know, obviously Karen, my wife, Satnam, I may be the biggest fan of India as it relates to professional wrestling, anybody in the world. So just the uniqueness of the group, the diversity of the group, none of us are anywhere close to being, you know, alike as it relates to on-screen persona. But it is something that has really captured the audience's imagination, because you never, ever know what you're going to get with our group. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, can you give us a bit of information? What are some of the team names you have kicked around?
Oh, I can't let you in on that, because then people would start voting. I like this. Do you have a team name?
WrestleTalk?
No. Oh, well, for our group.
We refer to you as Team TNA.
Oh, okay.
And that's only because, like, I'm a big TNA mark.
I got
so,
you.
Like, you know, and
I hear you.
I see you, I see Jay, I see Sanjay, I'm like, that's Team TNA. Like, that's my era of TNA, no less, as well. So that's what we always refer to you as.
Fair enough. Okay.
And you've got a big match this coming Wednesday as well, up against the Elite.
How about that?
Yeah. You and Kenny in the ring. You and the Bucks in the ring. Well, actually, you were former stablemates with the Bucks at one point in Bullet Club.
What do you think about that matchup?
I mean, I like it. Anytime I see Jeff Jarrett on TV, I think it's going to be great. But anytime I see the Elite on TV, I'm always really excited. I think they're a very unique team, a very special team.
Yeah.
And it is one of those, I kind of think the great thing about AEW is every week on Dynamite or on Collision, there's always this like, well, that's an interesting matchup I hadn't considered before.
Yes.
And yeah, I think I'm really excited for it.
I think that's where, you know, you chalk it up. Reading the online comments, I got a few texts when I woke up here in London. Hey, I saw the matchup. You know, it was posted in America late Sunday evening. So I can always get a pretty good gauge of the curiosity factor. Mm-hmm. And again, I think this checks all the boxes. Like Kenny Omega in the ring with Jeff Jarrett. The Young Bucks in the ring with Satnam Singh. Yeah, it's just a uniqueness. So, and look, the show's very special. And again, we have so many kind of unique shows, and this summer is crazy. From Forbidden Door, our tour of Canada, and now this is, you know, Dynamite 200. Mm-hmm. You know, it's a milestone show in Tampa. That's where Jay's lived for many years. So yeah. A 6-man tag with Sanjay and Karen outside the ring. It's gonna be fireworks.
You haven't been on Collision yet. I don't think you've been on that. Do you know what the differences are? Like, what do you feel the differences are between Dynamite and Collision? Because you've been on the show.
I was there for the first one.
You haven't like had a match.
Did a pre-tape that. We promoted the concession stand brawl.
That's it. Yeah.
I did. But look, it's always a challenge when you have under the same banner, you got to have, each show needs to have their own personality. I think Collision has come out of the gate with its own personality, but it is so early, it's 6 shows old, maybe?
Yeah,
so there's going to be a pacing that continues to work its way out. Dynamite has, like we just mentioned, 199 episodes under it. When you look at the amount of, and I'm not discounting Rampage, and that's a 1-hour show on Fridays, but it's taped on the same night most of the time as Dynamite. So the pacing, you have to take that into account. When you have 2 standalone shows, it's obviously doubled our primetime coverage. So that I believe Dynamite is moving into an era that it will take on a new personality just because you're, I don't want to say taking half the roster because guys are working both, but you're doubling your primetime coverage. So when you have that, I think Dynamite's going to take on a new personality, and I think Collision, the shiny new object in the room, is always going to lot of eyeballs. I've been super impressed with the pacing. I don't want to say it's they've had a lot of wrestling, but I think the pacing of it, because they've had their talk and their in-ring and the promos and all that, but I think the era of AEW that we just launched as it goes into Collision is really taking the brand to a whole nother level. I think you look at Wembley. It's a milestone show, and 7 days later we're going to be right back in Chicago doing the 5th anniversary of that event. So it's a special time to be, not just in AEW, but in the industry. You guys, I don't have to tell you, super successful right now, right? Continues to grow from where you were in 2017. We just talked about that. Can I get a loan? I want your no.
I'll make some calls.
Yeah.
I do have to ask you, because you mentioned the concession stand brawl that you did with Mark Briscoe.
Yeah.
Like the stuff you were doing with Mark, like you got a lot of praise online for the stuff down at the Briscoe farm and everything. How fun was that filming with the Briscoe family, and with the respects to Jay and everything, and with Jay's relationship with Jay Briscoe, no less. How much or did it mean to you? How much fun was it?
That's right up my alley. You know my career. That that is something that if you would have had your crew doc style just on that day of, we'll call it production, I think people would in a lot of ways just kind of be in amazement how you wouldn't have known when the camera was on and off. That banner, the authenticity that went into that. There wasn't, and I've been on a lot of shoots in my career that, I hate to say it, but the reality is take 1, take 2, take 3, take 4, take 5, take 6. There was never any of that. They just kind of turned the cameras on, and we just kind of rolled through it, and you got to block shots and stuff like that. But, and I don't want to say it was all ad lib, but for the most part, it really was. Papa Briscoe. The lines that they delivered about the 2 clowns down there and which one, that's all off the cuff. Me mistaking the baby for a little girl, and Mark, that was all authentic. When the shoot was about over, I walked past the riding lawnmower and I said, "Hey Mark, the key's in that?" He just kind of double take at me and he goes, "You're not really?" And I said, "Oh yeah, I'm really." And so I got on it. And not far from that was the tractor. And Satnam looked at me and I said, "Can you drive it?" He looked back there and he said, "Yeah." And Sanjay's like, whoa. And Satnam, he came to America when he was a kid, but, he comes from a small village in India that farmed. So it wasn't the first time he had driven a tractor. So all those little bits and pieces that came into it really made for some magical TV, and I'm glad that everybody enjoyed it. But
I think it's when we see a different side to Jeff Jarrett in this, because it reminded me a lot of, I believe it was the Slammiversary, you and Karen were doing your honeymoon at Universal Studios. And the skits there, and you mentioned it's like it does just feels like all ad-libbing. And that's kind of the same thing with those skits.
Yeah. And that's something that, it goes without saying. I love the in-ring product. It's my first love. When I was a kid, I dreamed of having matches But once you kind of get into the business and understand it, the real character development or the real emotional connection that, look, I'm still the biggest wrestling fan, but when I watch it, you get emotionally connected to a character on TV through those type of pieces, personality, character development,
It's the things that people remember.
Oh, without question. Taking us to a farm and seeing, that's another funny story. Sanjay trying to buy overalls in the D.C. area for Satnam. They don't make them that size. Call up Jay Lethal down in Tampa, went to a Tampa Walmart, yep. Just right off the rack, Satnam's overalls. So those kind of things, and seeing Satnam and Sanjay in overalls, and Jay in his sport coat, and me and just the whole thing is good.
I could still talk about TNA, but I won't.
Okay.
I won't just keep bringing up some TNA stuff. But I did want to ask you about your theme song. Now, if you don't mind, I do apologize. I'm going to bring up my phone for a second.
Oh, boy.
Because I love the My World song. I think a lot of people do. But I want to ask you about these lyrics. So, the earth is not your place. The pale skin is on your face. If you step inside with me, you will see a king. He ain't dead. He is Jeff. You want to talk us through what those lyrics might mean? He ain't dead. He is Jeff.
So what is your question?
Well, what are those lyrics? Oh, sorry, I got my pen there. What do those lyrics mean? He ain't dead. He is Jeff. It's something that my friends and I have been quite obsessed with over the last 20 plus years. He ain't dead.
Yeah.
He is Jeff.
Can I give you a little inside track?
Absolutely, I would do.
In writing that song, I think He Ain't Dead, He Ain't the Rock. Did you ever hear that version of it?
Oh, yes, that's really rung a bell with me, actually. I completely
I think that was
that.
out, and the Rock is trademarked.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we went back in, and in the way the artist Dale sang it, he had originally written it. I might have to hum it, but that last line we tweaked a couple of different ways. But that was, at TNA, My World, the whole theme hit it. The top riff is something that to me it grabs. Okay, we know he's coming. Yeah. So what your question is? What does that mean?
What does that mean? What does it mean to you?
That song, in a lot of ways, has become kind of my anthem, my identity. Of when the red light's on, that is my world. I am very comfortable in that world, and the red light could come on right now, literally right now in my mind. That okay, this is my world. Doing promos, or in the ring, or doing media, or whatever it may be. I just have a comfort level, and I think that's where the whole my world comes from. Mm-hmm. I guess I can tell you a little story. It's unique. We're coming up. I think today is the 1 year anniversary of Ric Flair's last match.
Is it really today?
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. I think it's the 1 year anniversary. And last year when we, go to the ring, Jay Lethal goes to the ring, and me and Karen go to the ring, and then I was outside the ring talking trash and Conrad and all that. And Jay leans over to Karen and says, "He's lost his mind. Like, what is he doing out there?" And Karen turned around and said, "Welcome to my world." Just kind of, but it wasn't welcome to her world. It was welcome to my world.
Yeah.
That's what he's doing. So that's kind of the whole mentality.
You have wrestled, 5 decades in
Easy
ring.
now, let's not.
But it's everywhere. It's WCW, it's WWF,
Yeah.
it's WWA, it's TNA, it's New Japan. How different is AEW compared to the other places that you have wrestled in around the world?
The athleticism, without question, is, and at TNA we had a lot of great athletes, but as we were growing the brand, we had a mix as much as, and we have a mix here, but the athletic ability of the roster, top to bottom, is incredible. You just talked about this Wednesday, stepping in the ring with Kenny and Matt and Nick. The athleticism is something that jumps off the page at me. The diversity, you look at the luchadors, several, they're just super talented. You look at the young guys that, we could go on and on. Ricky Stark, Sammy Guevara, just that entire list. Orange Cassidy, I don't think gets enough credit for his in-ring ability because he is such an over-the-top persona. But the athletic ability is second to none. The pacing, and it's something that I'm well aware of, we'll call them veterans or seasoned vets or old timers that they used to be called, that would, I don't want to say fight against the grain of progression, but I'm well aware that it's up to me to adapt. You try to stop time, that's delusional. So what I try to do is how do I compete in today's environment, and it ups my game. I get the butterflies in my stomach just like I did 20 years ago before a big world title match, and that's something that the AEW roster, the competitiveness, and I've always said that's a very, very healthy environment that guys want to go out. And every promotion I've been in, whether it's WWF, 90s, WCW, you named them all, if you can create a competitive environment, then you that translates to revenue. And we have a very, very competitive, super competitive locker room.
The company came under a bit of criticism last week. There was a sign that said, treat the women's division better. You, with your background in TNA and being a promoter there, the Knockouts was one of the things you were so heavily praised for because you put women front and center, and they often outdrew the men in terms of demos and things like that. Where do you fall on the criticisms that AEW have had recently with regards to its women's division?
Okay, so this is that's a loaded question.
It doesn't have to be.
No, I'm kidding. But here's where I'm going with it. The way social media, to me, has progressed and evolved, I think you have to, in my opinion, you have to have an understanding on reading it, in that it's not just the professional wrestling industry. Here in the United Kingdom, I hear there's a hot button called politics. I'm saying that sarcastically, but in America, the political, so the divisiveness, the ability to, hey, I'm going to tell you something, and you better agree with me. And if you don't agree with me, shame on you. That permeates society now. So that's obviously in social media. So I think you have to take whatever opinion is given on social media, you have to take that with a grain of salt and really try to drill down and say, okay, Twitter is, and I'm a data junkie, I'm an OCD, I'm dialed into that. But Twitter has an audience that has one mindset. Snapchat, Instagram, YouTube comments, I'm sure, they're all diverse, and they're not universal opinion. It's you can break it all up. So the criticism you have to take as one metric. I still believe at the end of the day, the best barometer is going out into a live arena with your paying audience, and I think there's a huge disconnect when you have, it's essentially a paying audience versus a non-paying audience. And a lot of times, you go to the Ric Flair match, and I'm just using that because that just popped back in my brain, the criticism that was received. I think there's a couple of different buckets. People that were there live, people that watched it on pay-per-view, and people that saw clips on, online. And then there's some people that just read about that hadn't seen any of the three. They all have a different set point, all have a viewpoint. So I respect all of them, but also have to take into account, as a 37-year veteran, when you really, really drill down, listen to your audience, and then make up the best decision. So as it relates to the AEW criticism, they're going to criticize it this week, and next week they could be universally praising it. So you have to take the yin and the yang. You have to take the good and the bad and just kind of move through it. You cannot discount it. If you just completely sweep it under the rug, that doesn't do your business any good. But you also have to learn how to filter it as well.
I mean, coming from WCW as well, that had its fair share of criticisms. You were
sure.
Just recently, the Dark Side of the Ring episode about Bash at the Beach 2000, which you were a part of, that has had a lot of a whole episode dedicated to it.
Unbelievable.
I've got to ask, what was your memories of that day?
Oh, and I don't know what will make it on the program, but they spent a day at my house and we talked about it. I've done a podcast on it. I've done kind of multiple podcasts around that era.
Must be something you started talking about it.
Yeah, 2000. Yeah, no, it was such a surreal day because to this day, I still don't think that the main players were Hulk, Eric, and Russo. those three were all at a different place in their head, and I don't think any of the three woke up that day or got to the building that day and said, I'm out to screw this guy. They all really thought, I'm going to make the best decision I can for me and my family. Unfortunately, the culture of the company at the time was in such disarray that here we are 23 years later making a Dark Side of the Ring. And, I was a pawn in a lot of ways in that position that I was damned if I do and damned if I don't. But I'll say this, and one of the quotes I use, I still think when you kind of look at the history of WCW, and it's not that long, WCW is kind of a short window when you look at it. It went out in 2001. I'm not sure what year did it.
Well, Nitro started in '96.
But so even if you want to just give the Nitro years, 5 years. Mm-hmm. The rocket ship that went up and the rocket ship that went down, and everything that went into it. That Bash at the Beach Day is such a microcosm. I think it just really amplifies. That was a huge black eye on the industry. I don't like that I was a part of it, but that's got to take the good with the bad in my career.
And you've had a lot of good as well. I mean, we had a question in on the podcast recently that I wanted to ask you about. They were asking, how do you think a wrestler will get local town heat when doing the Wembley show? So, like if you're in America, you could just go and be like, your local sports team sucks, and you get the local booze and everything. As someone who has no heat there goes heat, how do you get that at Wembley? Like, as a guy who's done a lot of heats, how do you think you would try and get heat doing the Wembley show?
Well, number one, in any set of circumstances, it's your opponent. You have to kind of start with your opponent and the position that he's positioned is. That's the first set point. And then also in a stadium show, and this is something that I think a lot of guys that haven't worked stadium shows, it's going to be a bit of a learning curve. It's no secret. Our business is a lot of theatrics. In a stadium, again, I was taught this. Jerry Lawler, my father, Jackie Fargo at a very young age. When you're working inside a ring, you don't work to the front row, you work to the back row. When you're working to the back row in Wembley Stadium, that's a long way off. So you have to have that mentality. And so I think body language is, they say 65% of all communication. Mm-hmm. If you really soak that in a stadium, you better have the right body language. And that's something that, I've learned through the years. So again, storyline going into it is such a big part of it as well.
One of my last questions I've got for you is AEW has done a great job of honouring the legacy of Owen Hart with the cup and everything for both the men and the women. Someone who had a very close relationship with Owen, how much does it mean to you how much AEW has done in honouring him, putting him in the video game and giving him a whole tournament?
Huge. I mean, I can't tell you, I was, not a part of AEW when the announcement was made. Martha and we got to literally catch up with Oj and Athena. And look, we've stayed in contact but haven't seen each other. But I got to see them in Vegas a couple of months ago for the first time in a while. But the first time since the AEW relationship, I can't put it into words. It does my heart so good that, for years and years and years, every interview I did, people were like, Owen, what a ribber he is, what a practical joker, and can you tell us a funny Owen story, all that, and or even when they would get into, can you tell us his style? And I always wanted to directly go to Owen Hart, the human being. I've never met anybody like Owen since, and I haven't, he had more integrity that you just don't run across. I'm not just saying not just in the wrestling business, but across the board. Wonderful human being, incredible talent, but for AEW to put the foundation that's how Owen still affects people to this day and for generations to come. So Martha and her team, it is. I'm so proud to be. I'm proud of Martha. I'm proud of AEW that they really continue to shine a light on the legacy of Owen, and not just his in-ring contributions.
How much would it mean for you to be part of the tournament?
You know,
we had a lot of comments being like, Jeff should be part of the tournament, he should win. I was like, oh, but he's such a good heel. Like, it's hard to win that tournament as a heel.
Oh, I'll take that as it comes. But, I can say this. If I ever entered into that tournament, without question, I would be channeling my inner Owen. There's no doubt about it. I would make Owen Hart the the antagonist. I'd make him proud.
Last question for you, Jeff.
You've already said that. Yeah.
Well, no, I said this was going to be one of my last questions.
Kidding.
This is my
Let's
actual
keep
last
rolling.
question.
I'm good with it.
I could talk to you for another hour, but I unfortunately have not got that time. There's still tickets available for All In. Not many.
Nope. It's going to make history.
But if someone's on the fence, with the people watching this who might be on the fence about buying a ticket, what would you, Jeff Jarrett, promoter, wrestler, wrestling personality, what would you say to convince someone who might be on the fence about buying a ticket for All In?
It's really simple. Do you want to be a part of history and truly be able to say, I was there when professional wrestling history was made? To me, it's that simple. It's not a match. It's not a character. It's not a storyline. It's, do you want to be truly witness history? How many times can you say that in my life, in the opportunity for not just professional wrestling, I'm talking about any form of live event. It's very, very hard to say, I was at that event when history was made. That to me is, whether you're a AEW fan, a WWE fan, a football fan, a music fan, it doesn't matter. If you want to be a part of history, I suggest you be there. And tickets, it will sell out.
Jeff Jarrett, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, appreciate
Absolute
your time.
pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.